Lead me to some soul today. Oh, teach me, Lord, just what.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 67 of a series of episodes that we are calling Leading Others to Christ. Those of you that have been watching and listening, you know, and you're familiar with what we're trying to do with this. But during these episodes, we're going to continue to be focused on evangelism. And we have a lot of goals, a lot of things that we try to do with this. But one is to stir up love and good works, especially in the area of reaching our family or friends or neighbors with the gospel of Christ. My name is Dan Barker, and I preach for the Creekside Church of Christ in Franklin, Indiana. And I've said this every time, but for those of you that don't know, Franklin is about 20 miles south of downtown Indianapolis. And those of you that know me, you know that I'm passionate about our subject. I'm passionate about evangelism. And I have been ever since I obeyed the gospel when I was 21 years old in Owensboro, Kentucky. And ever since then, and it's really been an interesting thought process, I guess, but I've always been striving to read anything I could get my hands on, talk to anybody that I could, to learn how to do this, to learn how to be involved in leading others to Christ. And I've done this a couple of times too. Some of the phrases: to teach others to teach, to sow the seed, to be a fisher of men and women, of course, and to persuade others to teach others. And remembering what Paul said to Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:2, and the things you've heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men, obviously faithful men and women, who will be able to teach others also. So a whole lot of what I'm involved in right now, what I do is that of teaching others how to do this. And then later in the chapter, I love this, but Paul's talking to Timothy and he tells him to be useful for the master. And I just go, oh, wow, how incredible would that be if I'm doing something that's useful for the master's work? And so we came up with this idea back when all the COVID nonsense hit of doing a podcast and say, all right, who are the men and women that are out there that are doing this? Who are the fellow workers? How are they doing their work? Where are they? And that's why we're here today. And we found so many people that have been willing to share but we've learned so much of how they're doing their work in their community, whether they're in Harlem, New York, or whether they're in LA or in Tampa or in the state of Georgia, wherever. And it's all been fascinating because every culture that we work in, every community that we work in, we have the same work to do, but the environment can be different and the challenges can be different. And anyway, we're excited today to have Scott Hafer with us. And be sure, if you're if you're driving, but if you're sitting watching this, get out your notepad, because I'm sure there's going to be some things here that we'll learn from Scott. But Scott Hafer, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and look forward to having a talk with you.
Well, good. All right, now Scott, we haven't met. I mean, just on Zoom here, right? We haven't met in person. Lord willing, we'll be able to do that sometime in the near future. But we start every episode out with what we call the elevator pitch or the short bio, and kind of bring everybody up to speed of where Scott is from and how old you were when you obeyed the gospel and where you are now. So the floor is yours. So bring us up to speed.
Okay. Yeah. I was born and raised in the state of Oregon, spent almost 4 decades there. I got saved when I was 21, I believe, and was baptized when I was 21. I never actually set out to be a full-time preacher. That was not on my radar. I was interested in preaching, however, so I got into that when I was in my mid-20s. Some people helped me out. I had some really good mentors. One of those mentors was a man named Olin Hudson, who was working at one of the congregations there in Salem, place where I lived. And he really encouraged me to study more and to get into the ministry. So I learned a lot from him. And I eventually took a position, a work at a small, in a small town called McMinnville, Oregon. Worked with the church there for about 6 years. That lasted until about 2009, and turns out I had some opportunities to work elsewhere, and so I was looking at Southern California. I was looking at Florida, and there's also this opportunity here in Marion, here in North Central Indiana. One of the guys I was talking with to kind of just try to figure all this out, and actually who introduced me to the work here in Marion, is Andy Cantrell. I was talking with him about this, and he's like, Scott, yeah, you should probably think about that. You'll need to stretch yourself. You'll need to really grow there, but it's a good work. And so I contacted the elders here. We had a good talk, and they mentioned something that was really interesting to me. They wanted a person to come into the area, and in addition to working with the church and focusing on the internals and the needs of the brethren, in addition to that, what they really wanted was a person to go out into the community and focus, externally and outwardly, because they've done some studies and they looked at the demographics of the congregation and realized that if there wasn't a change that would happen, there would be some significant problems down the road. So they wanted a guy to do that, and that appealed to me. Interesting thing about that is that when I came out here to interview one of the elders, really smart guy, he took me on the tour around the place. And, I expected to see all the highlights and things like that. And what I saw was a town that was really affected by poverty. Lots of financial problems here, not a lot of industry. Used to be a lot of industry, used to be a lot of money and reason for families to move in, but not anymore. Marion's your typical like Rust Belt kind of town. And the elder was super smart because he took me into the really rough neighborhoods in Marion, which ended up being like a large portion of Marion. I've never seen such a place quite like it. A lot of people here who are poor, a lot of people here who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, lots of crime here. So I started piecing together what Marion was like, and I realized that there was a lot of desperation here. And then I realized desperate people need Jesus.
Yes.
And they know they need something. They don't always know they need Jesus, but they know they need something or someone to help them out. So I put two and two together, the goal of the eldership here, plus the state of what I saw in the community. And I realized that, this could work. It was scary. It was out of my comfort zone, but that's how I got here. And I've been working with the church here for almost 7 years now.
Wow. Thank you for that, Scott. I love doing this anyway, but just so many things there that you said, that I could ask about, and that helps so much of moving from it's a piece of cake to move from Oregon to Indiana, right? It's nothing to it.
Right.
And I'm joking about that because people that have never done that, they can't relate. But you move your family and everything, and to go into a different culture. And I think that was really wise of that elder to take you around and show you the community, because you need to see that. I mean, to bring you in there blind, if you will, and not make you aware of those things, that wouldn't have been right. But so that's really good that he did that, and the things that you've learned about the community. and we've said this in several interviews too, because of, think of like Caleb Churchill up in Harlem, New York. Well, that culture is entirely different from Marion, Indiana, or Franklin, Indiana, or in LA or in Tampa, and so the work that we're doing is we're all trying to teach the truth, but the environment that we're in, and I think is so different. I think that's why you have the stories that you do of Jesus traveling and the apostles when they started, the different Paul and his missionary. He ran into some of the same things, but he ran into peculiar and unique situations every place that he went. And it's true today. So I want to go back because I had down one of the things on my notes. I wanted to say, did you have a mentor? And you brought it up. So this Olin Hudson, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Is he still alive?
No, he's not. He went on to his reward a couple of years ago.
All right. And the reason I do that is that I was going to say, if you haven't talked to Olin in a while, if he's still there, call him and tell him thank you. Thank you for encouraging you to get involved in the work. I think sometimes we don't do that enough. It's as hard as it can be, as hard as some days are, but to be able to thank the people that encouraged us to get involved in doing this, I think it's huge. Because I'm afraid perhaps in some places our younger people are not being encouraged to do this kind of work at all. Yeah. And so I'm thankful that, aren't you thankful that you passed Brother Hudson's path?
I am. By the grace of God, I met him, and by the grace of God, I'll be able to tell Owen in person, when I see him in eternity. Thank you so much, brother. I'm planning on it.
Wow. Isn't that emotional? I mean, that's so strong to even think about. That's really good. And you mentioned Andy Cantrell. We interviewed Andy and he's really good and is really motivated in the work that he does. And one of my questions that I had down, you answered a little bit, but you said in the beginning that this wasn't, when you started out, I remember when I was a kid, I was Danny, and people would say, well, Danny, what do you want to be when you grow up? And from the fourth grade on, I wanted to be a basketball coach because I had a coach in the fourth grade, believe it or not, in Kentucky, that just really motivated me, and he did all the way through. And I ended up going all the way through, and I was a college coach for 12 years, but so how would you answer this? Somebody said, Scott, why do you, of all the things you could have done, right? You're a sharp guy, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you do what you do every day?
Because of God's grace. By a lot of metrics, I don't feel like I'm qualified to be a preacher. Never really have. But because of God and what he's done in my life, the love of Christ controls me. Like it motivates me because of who God is and how I've seen him work in my life. I'm obligated. I feel like I have to preach. I feel like I need to share this message and extol God's greatness in any way I can.
That's very well said. I always think of what Paul said. I think it's in 2 Corinthians 5 where he's talking there, and he said that knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. I mean, you look at it from that standpoint, you go, "Oh my!" Right? Of knowing what people, what we know is going to happen in the future, and to not be willing to share that with people we come in contact with. That's very selfish on our part. And as Ezekiel talks about it in other places, Paul even said it to the elders at Ephesus. While I was with you, I taught you everything I could, and I've got no blood on my hands. Again, a powerful thought of I don't want to stand in judgment in front of Christ and have blood on my hands because I didn't talk to Scott Hafer about your soul, and so thank you for that. That's so good. Another thing I've started doing too is that I know there's somebody that you studied with in the past or been involved in helping them obey the gospel. I call it a conversion story, but do you have one that it could be more than one, but if you got one that you'd like to share with us, maybe some of the peculiar things that happened and how the study came together or whatever.
Yes, sir. Yeah, actually talking about the grace of God. There is a young man named Daniel Baker who about a year and a half ago came into the church building. He was visiting his great grandmother who worships with us, and as is my custom, I greeted him after the service and asked about his story and asked him why he was here and if there's anything that we could do to meet his needs. And he just looked at me and then he said, yeah, can you help me learn how to preach and teach the gospel to drug addicts and drug dealers, because
Wow.
that's what I want to go do.
Wow.
And I looked at him and said, yes, with a lot of trepidation. I said, yes. Sure. He told me a little bit about his story right there, and then in the church auditorium. But he told more of it to me at the coffee shop when I met him a couple of days ago or after that. So Daniel was an atheist. He was a drug addict. He was a drug dealer. He was a violent man, a violent aggressor. That violence landed him along with the drug issues, but that violence landed him in prison. He was the kind of drug dealer that if you messed with his deal, he would, break down your door and set fire to your things. He was a very dangerous man. And as he told me these things, I kept getting more and more afraid because I thought, what am I getting into here?
Right.
But he told me his story, told me that God had gotten to him, in ways that I really can't explain, but I accept. But God had gotten his attention in prison, and he started to believe in God. And so when he got out of prison, he started seeking God more and more. And so by the time we had just met, he was not only interested in God, but also interested in his salvation and sharing his salvation with his people like him, people with stories like him. Well, here's the thing, Dan. So I as I was going home, like that evening from that meeting, I had an Elijah moment with God. I had an Elijah kind of conversation. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm getting my Old Testament characters mixed up. I had a Jonah moment. Jonah's the guy.
Okay.
Just picture me like with my fist, pointing towards God, having a conversation with him, saying, like, God, like, why do you keep giving me these impossible people, like, to try to talk with? There's just no way I can do this. And over the course of a year, I'm not claiming that God spoke with me. I'm not claiming that at all. But it's like God answered me and said, I specialize in doing the impossible. And that played out. That played out. So Daniel and I continued to meet over the course of the year, and he continued to learn more and more about who God is and how God loves him and how God can save him. God converted him. He was baptized. And not only has God converted Daniel, but God has used Daniel now to reach Daniel's friends, just like he had hoped. So Daniel has been going into the community um, with his contacts in the drug and alcohol recovery world, and he's been preaching the gospel literally to drug addicts and drug dealers. And God has used him to convert at least 3 or 4 people.
Wow. And
it's just an amazing story about God's grace and God's power and God's mercy. And God's some things that literally, like with him, nothing's impossible. And all I'm doing now is just being a conduit of that grace. I feel like I'm living out Ephesians 2, like 1 through 10. You know, people are dead, but God, being rich in mercy, great in love, he saved them, not according to our works, but according to his. No, we don't get to boast, but we get to participate in this grace, and we get to be his workers. And that's a lesson that God's taught me recently.
You know, that's just so powerful. I tell people, I don't do it all the time with the ones that I'm around very much. I plant this seed. I'm going to do this with you. You need to write a book. You need to start a journal. You need to start writing some of these stories down, like this Daniel story. And because you'll be telling that when you're my age, Lord willing, you know, but to see how God works. And like in that moment you were said, you know, you can see the power. You know, the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. And it's so many times we don't respect that power, and we somehow are ashamed of the gospel and don't allow God to work. And that's just so sad. But so many things that you said there, you know, it started out with Daniel Baker. Well, I'm Daniel Barker. And when I first met my father-in-law, he thought my name was Daniel Baker. So but no, I mean, there's so many things. One of the things that's come out of this, and people that have watched and been listening, and this goes all the way back to Benjamin Lee, the very first person we interviewed. What if came up in the conversation? What if? And we've got some things. Our theme this year at Creekside in Franklin is what if. We got different speakers coming in, and it's like that one. What if? Just think about this. What if he hadn't shown up? What if whatever it was that he heard while he was in prison that made him start seriously thinking about just what am I doing here? What if grandma? You said it was his grandmother.
Yeah, his great grandma. Yeah,
his great grandmother. What if great grandma had not been there? You know, where he knew where to go. I mean, he made that connection somehow. What if you had looked at him? Not that this ever happens, but you saw this guy come in, and maybe you didn't like the way he looked or something, and you didn't go back and talk to him and show interest in him and show concern. You know what I'm saying? And then now it's led to him obeying the gospel and 3 or 4 others, and who knows how many more, you know, with God's help. I mean, if he's seeing this, and he's respecting the power and the grace of God as well. It's just, to me, that just gives me goosebumps as far as of what we can do if we'll just get out of God's way. I mean, he still needs us, but you've heard this before, you know, when the song Bind the Hand of Jesus, so many times because we don't do what we should, it's like we've bound the hands of Jesus, because God knows the people in the community that are the right soil, and he expects us to go and sow the seed. And but thank you so much, Scott, for sharing that about Daniel. That's so good. Matt's already, believe it or not, Matt's already given me the signal. We got 5 minutes left. See how fast this goes? I know.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say? I've done this since the very first one, but somebody's listening to this and maybe their fire's gone out. Maybe they're discouraged where they are. They realize they need to get involved again, or maybe in the first place, getting involved in teaching others. What would you say? There's one thing that they need to do, or there's more than one thing, but what's one thing that they need to do to get involved in leading others to Christ? What would you say to them?
Yes, sir. I'd say what Jesus said in Matthew 19, verse 26. With man, like, this is impossible, but with God, like, all things are possible. And so, whether you're an evangelist and you're struggling in a community that's difficult, maybe you're a Bible class teacher, maybe you're a parent. Whatever you're doing for the Lord, just remember, like, this is the Lord's work. This is going to be done by His power. It will be done for His glory. And when we start remembering those kind of things and start thinking biblically about how God says He's going to accomplish all these things, then the work gets to the right perspective. It starts to become encouraging. You start to work for the glory of God, that kind of thing. So, hey, with God, literally, like, all things are possible.
Boy, so powerful. Isn't it something, you think about all the passages in the Bible where God, through the different writers, is reminding us of things. He knows, He made us, but he knows that we forget, right? And so many times we forget, as you said earlier, about His power. We forget that with Him all things are possible. We forget who our Father is. We get so bogged down in the day-to-day nonsense around us in this world, right? And we lose our focus on what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm just I'd love to meet Daniel one of these days. I'd like to meet him, and keep encouraging him. I know you will, but keep encouraging him and the others that he's talking to, and thank you for being there to help him with the studies and help him as he's touching base with others. Would you mind sharing this? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, would it be okay? Would you share your personal contact information? What's the best way for them to contact you?
So the best way is probably just through my phone. So I'm at 503-302-1392. Just give me a call or shoot me a text, and I'll do my best to respond. I'm also on Facebook, and I have an email that's Scott Hafer 777 at outlook.com.
Okay, well, thank you for that. We've had different ones that have done this, Scott, where they kind of, I think we're all like this. We tend to connect or resonate with somebody. We make a connection just through a phone call, or I feel comfortable talking to him, or I'd love to have coffee with him and just share some more things. And another thing too is that even the ones that are doing the Lord's work, we need encouragement, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, because we get beat up, and God knew that, Jesus knew that, and He told us that if we follow Him, we're going to be persecuted. There's going to be challenging days, but there's also those days where we rejoice. One of the things that we've got at Creekside is we celebrate the sowing. Yeah, we celebrate when somebody obeys the gospel, but we celebrate the fact that we had an opportunity to plant some seed to talk to people, and that way we kind of keep each other motivated with that. So just so good. Well, do you have anything? We're already out. Is there anything that you'd like to share, or you wish that I had asked, or what's something else that you have, perhaps?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you and Matt for doing what you guys are doing. I was thinking about it. It's really needed in the kingdom right now. Just encouraging evangelists and just the work of evangelism, whether you're a preacher or not. That specifically is a thing that needs to be upheld and encouraged. So thank you guys for being such good workers in God's kingdom.
Well, thank you. You triggered another thought there. We'll make time to do this. You're married, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
How many children do you have?
5.
5. Ages, oldest is how old?
Oldest is 20. The youngest is she's 10.
10. What's your wife's name?
Carrie.
Carrie.
Yeah.
We need to give a shout out to Carrie, because Scott could not do his work without Carrie's support, right?
Yeah.
So tell us what. Here's your chance. Tell Carrie how much you appreciate what she does, or how does she help you in your?
All right. Well, if she's going to listen to this, I'll just talk to you directly, honey. You really are my Proverbs 31 woman. You are my luxury wife. I could not do what I do without you. You're God's grace to me.
Wow. She's going to like you better now than she did before. No, no. But you know what? We and I haven't done that enough through all of them, but I couldn't do the things that I do without my wife, Gay. Without her support, I wouldn't be able to do it at all. And the role that they play is huge. And because of the hours and the patience and the things that take you away from the family, can sometimes be very frustrating for them. So Carrie, right? Carrie,
Yes,
thank you, Carrie, for your role in all of this. And all right, brother, well, we're going to have to sign off here. And again, thank you so much. And I'm serious now. We're not that far away from each other, but somehow let's connect. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. And keep up the good work there in Marion.
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Who pray, melt my heart and fill my life. Give me one soul today.